everyone. My name is Teresa Lewis. I'm the OSIBU Director at the Department of Health and Human Services. As part of our acquisition training series, we're providing training today on eSRS reporting. I'm extremely excited to have with us a subject matter expert from the Small Business Administration. Angela Terry is the subcontracting program manager for the entire federal government, and I'm extremely excited to have her here. Angela, thank you for coming to HHS, and thank you for sharing your time and doing this training with us. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me. Today's subject is about eSRS. We're going to talk about the roles and responsibility of eSRS, as well as how to review subcontracting reports, both summary reports as well as individual subcontracting reports. So I look forward to answering any questions at the end of the training as well. Okay. So the presentation that I have in front of you is a subcontracting reporting presentation. It is about post-award responsibilities. We're going to go through the government's responsibilities as well as the contractor responsibility. As you all know, eSRS is the sub-award reporting system for Subpart 19 of the FAR for small business subcontracting accomplishments. This is where you would go to do accept, reject, review, and communications of the prime contractors and subcontractors, summary subcontract, and individual reports. The government's responsibilities are to register an eSRS, provide roles to the subcontracting support staff, as well as assist contractors in need of assistance, review subcontracting reports, approve and reject those subcontracting reports, monitor subcontracting accomplishments, and communicate with the contractor. We ask that you do all of this in the eSRS subcontracting system, and I will be showing you that system so that you'll understand how that is done. In eSRS, we have established roles. In order for you to view the subcontracting reports you are responsible for reviewing, it is very important that you, one, register in eSRS and then be assigned the right role. Agency coordinators at your agency are responsible for attending the CCB meetings with the Integrated Acquisition Environment. They are responsible for approving registrations as well as providing assistance for the government personnel as well as the contractor. They're also responsible for disseminating information throughout your organization on subcontracting as well as the eSRS system. They do have responsibility for reviewing, accepting, and rejecting reports. We also have a role of a point of contact, which is just like an agency coordinator, but they're more of an alternate when it comes to attending meetings. The contracting official is more of a CO responsibility, who has the responsibility of actually reviewing the individual subcontract report and the commercial plan report. They may also have the responsibility of reviewing the summary individual report as well. And then you have the designated government user, who is just someone who runs queries and wants to view information within the report. What's important is if you have the role and responsibility of reviewing these reports, you must be designated with the right role and the right office. If you are not, you will not be able to see your reports. So if someone has informed you that you have the responsibility of reviewing these reports, you've registered in eSRS, you've logged in, and you see no reports in your queue, it is because you are not registered for the correct office, and you need to contact your agency coordinator and your point of contact at that time. I'm now going to go into the eSRS system because I do want to show you there's two different portals for eSRS. As you see the screenshot, you have the contractors portal and the government portal. On eSRS, you'll have user guides. These user guides are navigational guides of how to utilize the system. They'll tell you how to accept and reject the report, what buttons to push, what you can do once you push those buttons. The training material that you see in eSRS is quick reference guides that actually give you subcontracting one-on-one. So if you're new to your organization or if you need a refresher about subcontracting responsibilities, then the only thing you need to do is pull out this training material and it will give you exact information that you need to go on and do your job. That training material is also at the bottom of every screen that you're on in eSRS, and I'll show that to you momentarily. In addition to that, if you have a new contractor that is new to government contracting, you can also point them to the training material, because we have two types. We have training material for the government, and we have training material for the contractors, and we have sample reports so that they can see the type of reports that they will be responsible for reporting. As I mentioned to you before, if you log into eSRS, this is the home screen that you'll see. If you do not have any reports in this queue, it is because you have, and you know for certain you have contractors who have submitted their reports. It is because you are not registered to the right contracting office. And what you would need to do is contact your agency coordinator and just let them know, and I'm sure that they will fix that on the job. What we're going to do now is actually go into eSRS so that we can actually look at HHS reports. Okay, just give me one moment here. Okay, here we go. I apologize for that. So what we're going to do now is actually go into an HHS, subcontracting report and review the data. What I really wanted this to be is a hands-on project, whereas you'll actually get to see a report, you'll get to see the data fields that need to be reviewed, you'll get to see how we expect for you to communicate within the report with your contractor. Prior to eSRS, we had a paper-based system, whereas we would get these reports in, we would review them, we'll pick up the telephone or send an email to someone, let them know that we had some type of issue with the report, and then once we did that, we would wait on them to get back to us, and we'll end up putting something in either a contracting file, or we'll have some other type of file where we've communicated with the contractor. Now that we have eSRS, all the communications that we do goes directly into the report. When a contractor wants to communicate with us, we advise the contractor what they need to do is put their comments in the remarks field, and what the government person would need to do is put their remarks in the reject or approval field at all times. Give me one moment. We're going to go to a summary report. We're going to pull up. All right, so we're looking at an HHS contractor. This report is in pending status. It is a commercial plan report. A commercial plan report normally has an approving agency. That could be your agency, or it could be another agency. The approving agency is based on the contractor who originally, the government agency who originally approved the commercial plan. And once that is done, anyone with the longest period of contract performance will be the individual responsible for approving. However, if you have accepted that commercial plan report, you still have the responsibility of reviewing that report, of viewing HHS or your agency subcontracting accomplishments, contacting that approving agency, letting them know they either accept the report on your behalf or reject the report on your behalf. In order for you to communicate with that contracting officer, you would need to look in the agency section of eSRS. You would click on organization, and you would just search for that particular organization and contact the agency coordinator. That agency coordinator would then communicate with whomever in their contracting office that has that responsibility. And if your request is to reject it, they will reject it. If your request is approve it, they will approve it. What I need for you to understand, if you do not approve the report, your agency will not accept credit for it. Any report that is in pending status, your agency does not get credit for it in their annual subcontracting accomplishments. Any report that is in reject status, they will not get credit for it as well. In addition, no report should ever be in reject status forever. Reject status is just to communicate with a contractor that we have a concern, and that concern needs to be addressed. Once that concern is addressed, we need to document that within the report, and I'll show you how to do that. So one of the things that you would definitely need when reviewing the report is to have the either individual plan subcontracting plan or the commercial subcontracting plan. So as you're reviewing the report, you will be able to see if this contractor is meeting their goals or is not meeting their goals. On the commercial plan report itself, it will not show you the goals. It will only show the accomplishments. And that is why that you would need the subcontracting plan so that you will be able to identify if they're meeting their goals or not. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that we have a commercial plan with this particular contractor. Oftentimes I receive calls from agencies saying, Angela, this company is submitting us a percent attributable to their subcontracting accomplishments. However, we don't have a subcontracting plan with them. So you need to be able to verify by having the subcontracting plan whether or not this particular vendor is someone that you have a commercial plan with. If it is not, you definitely need to reject the report and advise them that they are not. However, as you begin to review the DUNS number, the name of the vendor, if you can verify that they have a commercial plan with you, you would just go down the report, ensure the date that they submitted the report is in the proper field, the reporting year is correct, and then you want to make sure the description of their major products and services is what is on your commercial plan report. In addition to that, you want to make sure that their small business, large business, and social economic categories are within the goals that was submitted. If they are not, as you see, this particular contractor has done no contracting, subcontracting at all. And that is because perhaps there is a reason. However, if they have not given us a reason in the remarks field, we need to reject their report. Because what we would want to know is why. In addition, they've given HHS 35% of their subcontracting accomplishments and they've done none. So this tells me that this particular contractor needs to be educated on how to file this particular report. In the remarks field, we do tell them if you have entered a 0 in the small business section of this report or failed to meet the dollar or percentage goals in the commercial subcontracting plan, use this section to explain the reason for any shortfalls or your future plan of action. For this particular contractor, what they added was, we have bid and lost task orders and have not been awarded any task orders to date. We will continue to review bids, submit proposals, and market this vehicle. So what that tells us is this particular contractor had a commercial plan on a base contract that would have task orders associated to it. Even if they have no subcontracting, they are still responsible for submitting a report, as this contractor has done. They have entered the totals of 0 because, again, they have not been awarded any task orders, so they have no subcontracting accomplishments. This can happen also if a contractor was awarded a contract in September. The reporting period is at the end of September, so they haven't had the opportunity to do any subcontracting. So, of course, they still have to file the report, and the subcontracting accomplishments will be 0. It can also happen in a 5-year contract in which 2 years of the contract is been exhausted. However, they don't plan to do any subcontracting until the 3rd year. However, they are still supposed to advise you in the remarks field what the course of action is and why they have $0. If you do not have that, when you go to review the accept and reject status of the report, which is at this very top level, you have this drop down menu. You simply click it and you have the option of accepting or rejecting. If a contractor has not advised you why they have $0 or why they have not started to meet their goals, or if you see that they're having some type of shortfalls, you need to address it immediately. Please keep in mind that the commercial plan subcontracting report is fiscal year based. So if they have not met their goals, then they're not going to meet them for this particular subcontracting plan. We have an issue. We need to address that issue immediately. It is very good to communicate with your contractor throughout the course of the year to see if they're having any shortfalls, if they're having any struggles, because it's our responsibility to assist them with finding contractors if they need that assistance. If this was a contract that actually had dollars and percentages there for their subcontracts, I'll go back to the approve and reject status. If this was a contractor who actually had dollar figures in their contracts, the dollar figures will show here. It will then be their responsibility to tell us what percent attributable is HHS portion. In many cases, another agency would be the approving agency. In this case, HHS is the approving agency. In some cases, it could be GSA. So what you would see is the dollar figures for that in your queue when you go to look at the report, but you will not have the accept or reject functionality here in the right-hand corner. And that is because you're not the approving agency. In this instance, this is when I advised you that you would have to come over to the agency section, look up the organization, and contact an agency coordinator in that office, and either advise them to reject the report or accept the report on your behalf. One of the major problems that we have with the commercial plan report is contractors are somewhat confused, and what they would like to do is give the government 100% attributable for their subcontracting awards. The government can never be 100% attributable on a commercial plan, because the reason why they were allowed to use a commercial plan is because they sell a commercial product and they do business with other than the government. So at no point in time can the government have 99.9% or 100% of their subcontracting accomplishments. Normally what I would do is I review commercial plan reports, since we have such a problem with that. I would contact the agency and reject the report on their behalf and start communications with the contractor. A lot of times contractors just need support and training to understand what really needs to be done on those commercial plan reports. If you are reviewing a commercial plan report and you see that they've given you 90% or 99%, you need to start communications with that contractor. One, to ensure that they understand what is supposed to be reported, as well as to ensure they have reported the correct dollars. Again, this contract is zero, and why would they give HHS 35%? Because HHS has done nothing. So that tells me that this contractor would need some type of training, so when they do get task orders, they will understand what is required. In addition, I find it very hard that they have no subcontracting accomplishments. A commercial plan is a plan that the company developed for their organization prior to getting any contracts with the government. This company said, we would like to have or to give back to small businesses in social economic categories of small businesses. So this is what we're going to do in our subcontracting arena. It has nothing to do with the government. Because they've already outlined that on a plan, that means they have already begun to execute that plan. So that tells me that this company does not understand that the accomplishment that goes in this report is on the company's commercial plan and not for the work that they've done with the government. In addition, that tells me, based on their remarks, that they were only putting things in with the government. So I would have to reject this report, advise the contractor that the dollars that goes in small business, large business, and the social economic categories are based on the company's overall success in subcontracting, not just the work that they've done with the government. That is very important that we understand that. When it comes to a commercial plan, it is not just what has been done with the government. It is the overall accomplishments with the organization for their commercial plan. And at no time that should be zero unless they've done no business at all. So when you're reviewing a commercial plan, you see zero there, reject the report, advise or ask the contractor, why is it $0 on their commercial plan? Make sure that they understand that the dollars figures that go in this report is not government specific. The only thing that will be government specific would be the percent attributable to the government. Again, that's very, very important. It is not just what they've done with the government. It is what they've done with the organization for the products and service we have approved on the commercial plan. In addition, the percent attributable would be HHS's percent attributable for that subcontracting accomplishment, which in this case would be 0 because HHS has not awarded them any contracts. So if they've done $1 million total in subcontracting on their commercial plan, when they went to give HHS a percent attributable, it would be 0 and not 35%. Okay. In addition, what we would do is just make sure that they've certified their data. We also tell them that this certification of the data is a testament that they're submitting the report accurate, and it only includes dollars and percentage of their contracts and not their lower tier subcontracts. If they put no here, instantly you need to reject the report, because if they don't want to certify that their data is correct, then there's no need for us to review it. In this case, they certified that their data was correct because I'm sure they think that they're reporting correctly, even though we now understand that they are not, and they need to be educated in how to report their subcontracting accomplishments. In addition to that, we need to ensure that they have stated that the CEO or the highest authority of that organization has approved this report. That means that individual knows that they're reporting these dollars and that individual is okay with that. If we do not have that information, we need to reject the report as well, because what that is saying is the CEO or the highest tier of the organization is not in line with this particular report. Okay. We do ask that they enter an email address, but it's very important that you know that does not mean the HHS individual will not see the report if they do not put your email address in. As you know, we have turnover, we have people who have different positions assigned to them, so at no point in time do we rely on this email address in order for you to have visibility to the report. As long as you have registered for the right contracting office, you will have visibility of the report once you log into eSRS. Now that we've reviewed the report, I would go back up to the accept and reject. For this particular report, I will reject it. And whenever you reject a report, you must enter a reason for your rejection. Whenever you see a red asterisk in eSRS, it is because it is a required field. For this report, I will reject it for several reasons. The first rejection reason is I will reject it to start communications with the contractor on why have they not done any subcontracting on their organization's commercial plan. 2, I would advise them, are they aware that the dollars that go in this report is the overall subcontracting accomplishment and not just work with the government. 3, I would advise them that HHS is not 35% of their subcontracting dollars. At this time, HHS would be 0 because we have not attributed anything to this subcontracting because we have not awarded them any contract at this time. I would then ask if they need any additional training on how to report their subcontracting actions, and I would ask them to contact me. I would also ask them to enter anything that they would like to reply in the remarks field so it will be documented in the report. Once you communicate with them by telephone or email, I would then come back into the report and add that information in the reject notice as well. The reject notice stays in the report indefinite under the notes tab as you see it. So if you're no longer responsible for this particular contractor and someone else is, when they come in, they're able to review the history of the report instead of having to go to some contract file and look that information up. Now, if this was a perfect report and everything was reported correctly, I would just accept the report. When you accept a report, you do not have to add any information. You can, let's say you're accepting a report, understanding that, this contractor hasn't done any subcontracting as of yet. Because they won't be doing any subcontracting until 3 years into their 5-year report. You would still, if I were you, I would still enter a note to say I have communicated with the contractor based on no subcontracting accomplishments. The contractor has informed me that their subcontracting efforts will not go into effect to the 3rd year of the contract. So that SBA and others will know that you just didn't overlook the fact that this contractor has done no subcontracting at all. Okay. That is the summary of the commercial plan report. I now want to show you an individual report. We have commercial plan reports, but we also have individual reports for summary reports for the SSR. Let's just take a look. When we do individual reports, they are contract specific for the ISR, the individual subcontracting report. However, for the summary report, they are not. They are general. They include what the contractor has done on specific contracts, as well as what the contractor has done on contracts that are not specific with the agency. And it's very important that you understand that. So when you look at a summary report for an individual contract, it is because the contractor once met the threshold where they were required to do an individual subcontracting report, and they're now reporting on all of their subcontracting efforts that they have with your agency. That is for contracts that did not meet the threshold, as well as for contracts that did meet the threshold. We're going to look at another agency report for that. So the first thing you would do is look at individual to make sure that it is an individual and that company has an individual subcontracting plan with your organization. If they do not have an individual subcontracting plan with your organization, immediately reject the report. Advise them that you do not have that their organization does not have a contract with your organization, and they have reported their subcontracting accomplishments to the incorrect agency. Okay. As you look down the DUNS number, you ensure that is the company that you have the contract with. You ensure that the reporting period is correct. You ensure that the NAICS is the NAICS that you have the preponderance of business with this particular organization. And then you just look at their accomplishments. When it comes to the summary subcontract for ISR, you're really not looking to see if they met their goals, because their goals are not on this summary report. What you're looking at is to see the subcontracting accomplishments for this particular company overall for your agency. What you can see is this company does 34% this fiscal year in small business for HHS. And 34.4% was all with SDB businesses. That could be 8A firms, that could be self-certified SDB firms. In addition to that, they also need to make sure that they input who do you need to talk to if you had a problem with this report. We normally don't really have problems with the individual subcontracting summary report, because what the organizations are doing is just lumping up all of their subcontracting that they have with the agency and entering it. But if you ever needed to communicate with them about their subcontracting accomplishments, this is the section you would go, because it tells you who administers their subcontracting program for the organization. And it gives you their phone number immediately. Again, we ask them to certify to this data. If they're not willing to certify to the data, then we say reject the report. We also ask the chief executive officer, or the highest tier in this organization, to review this report as well, so that they can also know the dollars that they are reporting on the report. The same goes with the email address here as well. Again, just because we ask that they put an email address, they can put someone in their organization, they can put someone at HHS. The only thing that this is letting them know is someone has reported. If you have the responsibility, then you know that you can go to your account, log on, and just view the report. If you have gotten an email from them and you've logged on to your account and you don't see it, keep in mind it is because you have been registered to the incorrect office, and you need to contact your agency coordinator so that your agency coordinator or your point of contact can sort out the right agency office that you need to be reporting on. Okay. Again, once you have reviewed the report and you're ready to accept or reject it, the same action occurs. You go to reject. If you reject, you must put a reason for your rejection and just hit submit. If you accept, then you do not necessarily have to put a reason why you accept, but the only thing that you would need to do is submit. Once you've done any of those, whether it's reject or accept, your information will show right here, indefinite, in the report. Okay. We're now going to go to an individual subcontract report so that we can review that. Again, individual subcontract reports, better known as the ISR, are contract specific. They belong to a specific contract. They are cumulative for inception of the contract, and they are due twice a year. They're due at the 6-month interview and the annual interview. I'm going to look at this particular contractor. Their report is in pending status. It is an individual report. You definitely need the individual subcontracting plan when reviewing the individual subcontract report. You cannot review this report without the subcontracting plan, because what you're looking for with this plan is to ensure that they met their subcontracting goals. The only way that you know that they've met their subcontracting goals is by having the subcontracting plan. If they do not have the plan, then you just cannot review the report. The first thing you need to make sure is the DUNS number of that organization is the same DUNS number on that plan. You need to make sure that the vendor information is correct. You need to make sure that they've entered some contact information. You need to make sure that the reporting year is accurate, because when they're reporting, they can report for the current fiscal year and 5 years prior. So you want to make sure that they are reporting on the proper fiscal year. Now, they cannot do more than one report in the same time frame. Okay. The agency that they're submitting their report to is automatically fed from FPDS&G, which is the Federal Procurement Data System. They do not select that. Whatever agency awarded the contract is automatically pre-populated in this particular area of the report. Again, they must put in their major products and services that's on that subcontracting report, and you want to make sure this matches what's on that report to ensure that they're reporting on the proper data. Now, when you look at this report, okay, we're not at a summary report. Okay, I need to go back. My apologies. This is a summary report, and we want to be at an individual subcontract report. All right, let's go. As you can see, you have plenty of outstanding reports for various fiscal years, but we just want to look at the 2014 report. And while I'm here, let me just explain these filters to you. Anytime that you're in eSRS, you have specific filters. If you want to look at a specific status of a report, you have draft reports, which are reports that was begun, no one finished, which is on the contractor side. But if you're not a super user of the system, you will never see a draft report. A pending report is a report that the contractor has submitted to the government and is awaiting for the government to review it. A revised report is a report that was submitted to the government. The government reviewed it, they rejected the report. The contractor went back in, fixed the report, and has revised it, and is now waiting for the government to review it. An accepted report was a report that a contractor submitted, the government reviewed it, didn't see any errors, didn't have any known questions or issues with the report, so they have acknowledged receipt of receiving the report. Again, a rejected report is a report that was submitted to the government. We did see some issues with it. We had some known errors. So we rejected the report to start communications with the contractor. A reopened report is a report that we had previously accepted. We then either got some information, maybe a contractor called us and say, hey, I made an error on that report, I need to fix it. In order for them to fix it, we would have to reopen it. Or maybe we're doing some type of internal review and we look at it and we see something that's questionable. So we're going to contact that contractor by reopening their report and letting them know that we have some concerns. For the sake of our presentation, we're looking at pending reports. There's different types of reports. There's a regular report, and there's a final report. A regular report is the report that's due while the contract is open. If it's a 5-year report, then you expect to see 2 reports each year for 5 years. However, when that contract has ended, they need to do a final report. The final report means there's no more reports that you will be receiving coming in for that particular contractor. If you want to see the prime reports or the sub reports, prime reports are reports that have been supplied by your prime contractor. Sub reports would be the subcontractors of your prime report. As you are aware, we have a flow down clause in their prime report that states the prime contractor or the higher tier subcontractor is responsible for reviewing the data on a subcontract report of their lower tier subcontractors. Very important that you remind them of that. And again, you can then sort for a particular contracting year. These fields here with the arrows are ascending and descending as well. You can click them and then they will also provide you with sorting the data for you. We're going to look at this particular individual subcontract report. So as I said first, it's pending. We want to make sure that DUNS number is someone that we have a individual subcontract plan with. The verified data is very important too. So in order for them to report on their individual subcontract report, the system is fed data from the Federal Procurement Data System Next Generation. In the beginning, when we started eSRS, we had many problems because the contracting officer is responsible for putting this data in FPDS&G and then clicking a button that states the subcontracting plan is due. When the contracting officer does that, it flows data over to eSRS, which allows the contractor then to view their contract to report. As I stated before, the ISRs are specific to a contract, and this is the contract number. So when a contracting officer is going in to review reports, they should have a listing of each contract that a report is due on. And all they have to do is go down that report looking at those contract numbers to ensure the contractor has reported. Again, it is very important that they have their subcontracting plan or they will not be able to accurately review this report. If the verified data, meaning the question to them is the data correct that comes over from FPDS&G? The first 14 fields is data that is pre-populated from FPDS&G, from the DUNS numbers to the vendor's name, the vendor's address, the date that the contract was signed, the agency that awarded the contract, the agency's office ID, the agency name, the office ID, the funding agency, the funding amount, the product and service code. All of this information comes over, the first 19 fields, comes over from FPDS&G. So if the contractor says, hey, this information is not correct, then we just don't even need to review the report. We need to stop, we need to reject it and ask why did you report or what information is incorrect. Hopefully what they have done, if they said the information is incorrect, they've noted that in the remarks field. We can just go to the remarks field because that's what we tell them to communicate with us. And then we can identify what problems they had. For this particular report, they said the data was accurate. So because the data is accurate, all we need to do is to scroll down and look at the report. I would say that you need to verify this data as well as the contracting officer to make sure that the data did actually flow over from FPDS&G accurately. If you find that the data is incorrect, then you still need to reject a report, figure out why the data is not accurate, and then ask the contractor to redo their reports once you've gotten the data to be accurate. Okay. Now, number 20 asks, is their contract administered by another organization? I don't believe HHS has contracts that is administered by someone else, but oftentimes contracts are administered by DCMA or some other agency. And what that means is that agency is responsible for ensuring the contractor is in compliance with their subcontracting dollars. In that case, the contractor would say yes here, and they would select that agency who administers their report. And both the agency who awarded the contract as well as the agency who administered the contract will have access for visibility of that report. Again, we ask them to put the contact information of the individual who is filing their report. We normally would ask, and in the training material, it does ask this individual to put their name, phone number, and email address. In this case, the individual just put their name. We want to make sure that the reporting period is correct and the reporting year is correct. And we want to make sure that the report is correct. This particular company say it is a final report. That means their contract has ended, and this is the absolute last report that they will be filing. So if you know that, hey, their contract hasn't ended, they have 2 more years on this particular contract, you need to reject the report and let them know that they have selected the wrong type of report, and they need to go back in and correct that. They're saying that they are reporting this action as the prime contractor. As you know, they have the option to report as a prime or a subcontractor. So you want to make sure that this is definitely the prime contractor that you have awarded your contract to. Now, this is the meat and potatoes of this report. Again, the individual subcontracting report is to ensure that the contractor you have awarded this particular contract to is actually doing due diligence to meet the goals on their subcontracting plan. The only way that you're going to know that they're doing that is to ensure when you're reviewing this report that you have their subcontracting plan available when reviewing. All of the data that we're now going to talk about is verbatim from the plan, except the actual accomplishments. Everything else, we're asking whether or not they have included indirect dollars or direct dollars in this report. If their subcontracting plan did not say that they can include indirect dollars in the ISR report, they are not able to. So if you're reviewing this and they say they did have indirect dollars and you look at their plan and it says they cannot, then you need to reject the report and ask them to redo the report, subtracting the indirect dollars. But in this case, it told us that they do not have indirect dollars. In addition, what you want to review is that the goals in the goal column is correct. You want to make sure that they mirror verbatim what's on the subcontracting plan. So they were supposed to do $651,000 in small business and $1.3 million in large business, and their total subcontracting dollars was $1.9 million. You want to make sure that that is actually what we have agreed to on the subcontracting plan. And the only thing that you would need to do is take a look at the plan and take a look at the data. In addition to that, you want to make sure that their goals for their social economic categories are correct. This is particular, but it could be correct that they have the same goal for SDB, WSB, and Hub Zone, and they have the same goal for veteran and disabled veteran. Normally, you would not have the same goals, but for whatever reason, we have elected for them to do so. If that is accurate information, fine, we continue on with what we're doing. Okay. So the next thing that we want to do is to see, are they on target to hit those goals? For this particular contractor, they've exceeded their goals already. They've issued 1.1 million in small business contracts. They've issued 1.1 million in large business contracts. So they've actually exceeded our expectations on what they were supposed to do for small business. They exceeded their SDB goal. They exceeded their WOSB goal. They exceeded their Hub Zone. Nope, they didn't quite meet their Hub Zone goal, but we wouldn't beat them up for that. We wouldn't beat them up for that because they've exceeded in other areas. They exceeded their veteran goal. Now, they did not meet their SDVOSB goal. However, I would like to make sure that this company knows that anything that they put in their SDV goals automatically goes in their VOSB goals, because you can't be a service disabled veteran without being a veteran. And that's one of the things that we try to educate individuals, that anything that you enter in your SDVOSB goal or accomplishment is the same thing that you need to put in addition to your veteran, because again, you can take credit for that in both places. You can't be a veteran can't be a service disabled veteran unless you are a veteran, and that's not double counting. It's very important that you all understand that. Sometimes what we try to explain to people is really good if you can get one business that's hub zone, woman-owned, small business who's a service disabled veteran, because then you get to meet 4 targets. You get that hub zone, you get the woman-owned small business, you get your veteran goal, and you get your SDB goal. And that is because each one of those goals, if it's $1 million contract, in each one of those categories, you can put that $1 million because you have awarded $1 million contract to each one of those categories. Okay, so again, I would not beat this contractor up for missing 2 goals because they've exceeded in other areas and they did diligently. They did try to award to contractors. We would want to make sure that whatever the basis is that they started doing their subcontract, they continued. And there's 3 bases, but there's 2 primarily used. Commitment basis is when they award the subcontract, they take credit for it. This particular company uses the payment basis, so they don't take credit for subcontracting accomplishments until they have paid the invoice, which is great. That way they don't have to ever back out any dollars. They've also certified that the data is accurate and it belongs to them and not their lower tier subcontractors. If they had not, then again, we will reject the report. If we notice that all of their other reports were on a commitment basis and now they're doing a payment basis, we will reject the report, because whatever you start reporting on is what you have to continue to report on. We would then read what was in their remarks column. And according to them, their period of performance consisted of 3 months of operation and 1.5 months of closeout. While actually overall small business and small disadvantaged business and women-owned and veteran business percents were significantly exceeded the planned goal, hub zone and services able veteran actually of overall spend was below the goal. Given the short period of contract, the First Coast did not have the business need nor the procurement opportunity to utilize some of their small business vendors to the same extent as they have historically. So according to them, they just didn't have any opportunities to do more than what they did. But, we definitely should applaud them because what they would do, they did do. I also would applaud them for giving us an explanation of why. We then ask again for the contractor who administered, because let's say the opposite of this happened. They didn't meet their goals, which we should have started communications with them way before the time of their final report. The ISR report is due every 6 months or in 6 months interview. At that point in time, when we get that first report, we need to be reviewing it to see if they're on target to meet their goals, because the report is inception to date of the contract. So we can tell whether or not they're on target to meet their goals, whether it's the first year, second year, third year, or fourth year. And at some point in time, we need to start communicating with them to address why haven't they had any subcontracting, why they're not on target to meet their goals, so that they'll know that we're paying attention to the data that's on the report and that we're here to assist them if they need us to help them look for vendors, if they don't quite understand, or maybe there's no more opportunities where they thought they had opportunities. Maybe we have to come up with some creative ways for them to do some subcontracting with the small business. But we don't want to wait till the final report to ascertain there was a problem. When we realize that they didn't have any subcontracting or they weren't meeting the goal, perhaps we should have done something then. What is peculiar to me, they're saying that their report was only during a 3-month time frame. So I'm wondering, do they have a 3-month contract in which they only have this one report? But that would also take into account, because if they had a 1-year contract, even though their performance was only for 3 months, they still need to report that they had no dollars during that other time frame. Because remember, whether or not you've had any subcontracting accomplishments, you still need to report. If this was a firm that was not meeting those goals during that time frame, I would have rejected the report to ask if I could assist them. Could they explain to me why they're having shortfalls in this area? Explain to me what would be their plan of action, so that we can kind of assist them in anything that they need to do during this time frame. The next thing that we would do again is we ask for that email address When we ask for that email address again, it does not mean that if they do not put your email address there, that you will not get the report. You still will get the report as long as you are registered through the proper contracting office. Again, if you find that you have reports that have been submitted and you cannot view those reports, you just need to contact your agency coordinator and your point of contact to let them know that you cannot visibly see your reports. Okay? Now that we've completed the ISR portion, I kind of want to give you some information about assistance whenever you need help with the eSRS reporting. At the bottom of the screen, these are live links, and these are live links to the various types of reports that are in the system. And they give you hands-on instructions on how to review reports. I mean, they give you verbatim information. So if you were reviewing an ISR, you would click on the ISR review. It will open up in a different window. And as you review it, it will tell you, it has a table of contents, but it tells you what the contractor's responsibility is. It tells you what the government responsibility is. It tells you what to look at as you review the reports. It tells you the time frames that the reports are supposed to be reviewed. It tells you about the particular statuses of the reports. It tells you how to enter into eSRS. It tells you about that queue that I told you when you first log on to eSRS, where you should be seeing some type of reports there if you were told subcontracting reports were submitted to you. And it gives you screenshots of every screen that your contractor sees when they are awarding. So if you need to assist your contractor, they contact you and say, hey, I'm having some difficulty with understanding how to navigate through eSRS. All you need to do is look at this training material. It shows you, this is the screen of your contractor, how they file the report. It gives you in-depth information about what they see on the report, so you never have to guess. Anything that your contractor is seeing, you see, and it gives you verbatim, word for word, what that is. It also tells you when something is not right, when to reject, when to accept the report. It tells you, and I'll show you that as well. Here, like the verified data, as I told you, if it doesn't say yes, it says no. It tells you once the information has been corrected and resubmitted, then you can have the contractor go back in and report and then accept their report. So at any time that you need some assistance within eSRS, the training material is here to let you know, or to assist you in what your role is in reviewing, or to assist you in giving your subcontractor or prime contractor assistance with the eSRS system. Okay, and again, it's listed here. One of the things that I would like to show you, and I'm going to show you another training material, is considered generating reports. In eSRS, we have standard reports that will let you know the statuses of the reports that have been submitted in eSRS. We have both standard reports and we have both ad hoc reports. The standard reports that are in eSRS, this particular training material tells you what information they provide on that report. So if your boss ever tells you, hey, I need some type of information out of eSRS, and you're wondering whether or not eSRS has reports for that, the only thing you need to do is log on to eSRS, look for the report that said generate a report, review it to see if the reports that are there provide you with the information you need, as well as it gives you step-by-step information on how to run the reports. The numbers that correspond to the picture are the same numbers that correspond to the information below the picture. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to look at a report that will show you the status of the reports that you have in the system, in case you're wondering if you have any reports at all that you need to go in the system and take out a pending status. Please keep in mind your agency does not get any credit for their subcontracting accomplishments for any report that is not in accepted acknowledged receipt status. If it's in pending status, revived status, reopened status, your agency will not get subcontracting credit on their annual report. So it's very important that we go in a timely manner and correct that. The rules and regulations now that has been finalized say that government employees need to do that within 60 days of the submitted report. In order to run that report, you get on reporting. You would go to the bottom of the screen and hit new. I'll show you this. Whenever you have run a report, eSRS automatically saves that report for you. If you wanted to review that report again, you would click on the magnifying glass, and as you scroll your mouse over it, it tells you what these icons do. This is to review the latest run of the report. This is to change or edit the report settings. This is to rerun that report, regenerate it. This is to see all previous runs of the report. And this is to delete that report out of your queue because you don't want to see it here anymore. For the sake of this presentation, I'm going to run a new status report. Now, when I run status report, the status report is a standard report. In standard reports, you can't really change any of the settings. There are allow you to filter on some settings. But to run, there's two steps. You can either run, step one is ad hoc reports, or step two, we call them predefined or standard reports. That means we have already predefined the criteria for the report. For the sake of this training, we're going to look at a SSR status report. Because as you know, we are getting ready to do the scorecard, and you really need to make sure that your agency SSR reports are in acknowledged receipt accepted status in order for you to receive credit. As you can see, the filter, everything is already pre-selected. It does allow you to select if you want to see children agencies. HHS is considered a parent agency, and any agency that's under HHS is considered a child agency or one of the children agencies. You can filter on the type of plan. If you select nothing, you get all reports. For the sake of this, we're not going to filter on anything. We won't filter on dates submitted, but if you wanted to know everybody who submitted their report in November, you can do that. If you want to filter on reports that were submitted only as prime contractors versus subcontractors, you can do that. Please keep in mind, whenever you select both means that is a report of a contractor who is both prime and sub for your agency. I recommend you do not select any of these filters. The only filter that I recommend that you select is if you want to see a report for a specific year. For this particular session, I'm going to put 2014 reports because we want to see every report that was submitted for fiscal year 2014. Okay, the agencies for this report is predefined, so when I run this report, you're going to see other agencies outside of HHS, but we're just going to focus on HHS. If you want to remove this report out of queue while it's being ran, you could hit that button. But for me, I want to see it, so I'm going to hit View Report. I'm going to scroll down to HHS's reports. Well, let me show you the heading before I do that. At the heading, you'll see that it gives you accepted reports, pending reports, rejected reports, reopened reports, revised reports, and total. Keep in mind, if it's in revised, reopened, rejected, or pending, you do not receive credit for that report on your subcontracting accomplishments for your agency. When we look at HHS's reports, we see that you have 298 reports in pending status. You have a total of 400 reports. You have accepted 96 of them. You have 5 in revised status and 1 in rejected status. Okay. I'm going to show you one more report if you want to know how your agency is doing in subcontracting accomplishments for a fiscal year. We do have a standard or predefined report that you can run for that as well. But before I do that, I want to show you the functionality that you can use within the report. If you wanted to regenerate that report because somebody just said, hey, I had a contractor to say that or a contracting officer say that they just cleared the queue, and you want to verify that, you can just hit regenerate the report. It goes back out and regenerates the report again. If you want to open this report in a new window because you want to do something else, you can do that. If you want to save this data into an Excel spreadsheet, you just click on this Save Excel, and it will generate the information in an Excel spreadsheet so that you can utilize the functionality of Excel. Okay. And there you are. So now you can utilize any of the functionality within Excel, maybe even do another report for your senior. If you want to change the setting of the report, you can do that. Maybe you want to run it for an additional year. If you want to go back to the report list, which I want to do because I want to show you how you can get your agency's subcontracting accomplishments, you would do back to report list. Again, we would come down to add new report. We would go to the predefined reports, but this time we would do subcontracting achievements by federal agency. We would then hit continue. Again, it is a predefined report, so all of the filters have been chosen for you. We're going to take fiscal year 2014, and we're only want to see HHS totals. So let's see, you want to do not just HHS as a whole, maybe you want to just do your office. You can do that. Whenever you see this blue arrow, that means there are sub-agencies also listed. So you can run this for your particular office if you would like to do so. If you made a mistake, all you have to do is click the X and it will remove that agency from your queue. I'm going to run the success for the agency of HHS, and all I do is hit submit. This report will tell me how you've done in small business, large business, and every social economic category for 2014, taking into account that it is only going to bring in the reports that have been in accepted status. Okay. So it broke it down per agency, office for you all, and at the bottom it gives a total for HHS as a whole. Okay. The end of the presentation is pretty near. The only thing that I want to show you now is if you ever need any subcontracting assistance or eSRS assistance. eSRS is managed by the Integrated Acquisition Environment. In the Integrated Acquisition Environment, help desk for the electronic subcontract reporting system is the Federal Service Desk. There's several things that you can do on the Federal Service Desk. You can actually have an 800 number where you can contact the 800 number and you can make those calls and talk to a live person, or you can put in a report through the web form. Everyone who does a web form will have to register for an account, and they do that so that if you ever have a question that you need to revisit, you can just log on to your account to revisit that information. In addition to that, if you ever need just frequently asked questions, they have live links here that will allow you to go to the system that you have those questions for. Again, eSRS questions, you would just go into eSRS and it will give you an overview, a user manual, samples, they have videos, quick start guides as well to provide you with any information. This is system navigational help. If you pushed a button and the button didn't work, or if you're looking at a report and the report doesn't show your data correctly, that is the kind of information that you would go to the Federal Service Desk for. If in fact that you were needing assistance on subcontracting help, you need some type of information on subcontracting assistance, at that point in time, you would contact your commercial marketing representative who works for the Small Business Administration. Your commercial marketing representative could be found here. We do have the presentation where it goes straight to the website where you can look at your commercial marketing representative by designated area. If you live in Missouri, Michigan, you would look for your commercial marketing representative by your area or your state. It will provide you with their name, telephone number, and contact information, and your commercial marketing representative will help you with any information that you may have on subcontracting as a whole. If all else fails, my name is Angela Terry, and as stated, I am the Subcontracting Program Manager for the Small Business Administration. If you ever need any assistance with any subcontracting question, you can contact me at angela.terry@sba.gov.
All right. Angela, I just wanted to say thank you. This was extremely informative. Subcontracting is an area where we always get a lot of questions at the small business office, and there's quite often some confusion on who actually approves which report. So you have provided great clarity today on that. So I just want to thank you on behalf of HHS ICBU, but all of the ICBUs, because this is something that we all share in common. So what I'll do is I'll go to the questions. While we're waiting for that, can you clarify one of the types of reports that you share? There are two types of subcontract summary reports. One is for commercial plans and one is for individual plans. And we often get a lot of questions on what's the difference between the two. If you could share that while I pull up the question.
Okay, no problem. So the difference between the two is, as I stated, the commercial plan is a commercial organization who sells a commercial product has already elected to do subcontracting with small businesses in social economic categories. So that organization has developed their subcontracting plan, so to speak. It could be on a plant, a product, whatever, but it is specific to that organization and has nothing to do with the government. So at some point in time, when they decide to do contracting with the government, they submit their proposal and they let the government know that we sell a commercial item and we've already developed a commercial plan. The government reviews that plan and decides, okay, it's acceptable to us. One of the major things is a commercial plan is only good for a fiscal year. It is not good for the inception of the contract, so to speak. In addition to that, the commercial plan, when they report accomplishments on the plan, which is not specific to the government. And that's so important. As you can see, the report that we looked at had $0 and had given HHS 35%. HHS had not even issued a contract to them, so HHS attributable should have been $0, but they should have had some subcontracting dollars on the report itself. So that is the major thing with the commercial plan. Commercial plan is one of the most difficult reporting plans that we have because the contractors are really confused on what the expectations are on that particular plan.
Very good.
The individual report or individual plan is totally different. It is specific to a contract and it lasts for the inception of the contract unless modifications are done on the contract that increases it for the subcontracting threshold. In that case, the plan stays in place throughout the contract's exception. When you report, you're reporting on specific to the contract and to the government. Unlike the commercial plan is specific to the organization subcontracting efforts. So those are the major differences between the two.
Okay. You stated during your presentation that if another agency issues the plan, that a commercial plan in particular, that the contracting officer should get a copy of that plan.
Most definitely.
And I think there's a lot of confusion as to, as a contracting officer, is that my responsibility to get a copy of the plan?
Most definitely. So when they submit their proposal to you, they should be submitting a copy of their plan. If your solicitation has a requirement for a subcontracting plan, the contractor should be submitting a copy of the plan with it. The difference is if you are the first government agency that contractor is pursuing a government contract, then you're going to be the approver of that plan. If you are the secondary government or third or fourth, then you're accepting that plan as is because some other government organization has already accepted and approved that plan. However, you are looking at that plan as it relates to your particular contract. And therefore, when they report their subcontracting efforts, you're also looking at the percent that they have given you attributable for your agency. And it is very important if you, for some reason, are not in agreement with that you contact that other agency who is the approving agency to allow them to know to reject the report on your behalf or to accept the report on your behalf.
Okay, so I'm going to throw you a little curveball.
Okay.
I, being the contracting officer, have awarded a task order on the GSA schedule contract.
Okay.
Now, my contractor, Mr. Large Business, has a commercial plan. I don't have to get a copy of their plan from GSA, or do I?
Again, you should have gotten a copy of that plan when you got their proposal. If they have a requirement for a subcontracting plan, when they submit that proposal to you, that's when they're submitting a copy of their plan. What comes in question is, are we the first government organization that is awarding you a contract or not?
Okay. So we get a lot of questions on if it is a GSA task order contract that I, as the contracting officer here at HHS or any other agency that has ordered off of that contract, I don't have to monitor the subcontracting achievements on my task order because that's GSA's responsibility.
Well, think of it this way, and let me make sure. If it is a GSA contract, they're absolutely correct. Okay. If it's a GSA contract, that GSA is the contract holder of the base contract, then GSA will be responsible for reviewing the subcontracting actions of that contract. Okay. However, because you're issuing a task order on that, you would want to see what that contractor has agreed to do. Okay. And if you are in question of that, you can always contact GSA and say, hey, we're issuing a task order on this, and we would like to talk to you about this particular commercial plan. They're right, in fact, to say that GSA has the responsibility for that contract because, again, it's a GSA contract. However, they're incorrect in saying that they do not have any responsibilities. Again, your organization is awarding it. You want to be involved with what that contractor is doing on that task order. You want to ensure that that contractor is definitely giving small business some opportunities on that because they're doing work for you and they're not actually doing work for GSA. The administrative portion could be GSA's responsibility. Yeah,
we typically tell the contracting officers here at HHS that they actually have a responsibility to ensure at the task order level that they are applying the GSA goals on that task order, and that they need to ensure that for that respective task order that they are actually monitoring our prime contractor for those goals in that particular task order. Okay. All right, very good. Well, thank you. That's very helpful. So I'm looking at all of the compliments that you're getting, and they're saying nice job, kudos, and thank you. So let's start with some of the questions that have come in, because I could talk to you all day. You're so knowledgeable, and it's just wonderful to hear you provide clarity in this subject area. So here's a question. Where again is the step-by-step information in eSRS for ISR, etc.?
Okay, so again, you can look at that information from the portal, www.esrs.gov. On the right-hand side, training material will give you step-by-step instructions on actual subcontracting. Okay. It gives you a subcontracting 101. I always tell people, if you can just read that one section, you'll be a whiz at subcontracting. You'll be able to answer pretty much any question that a contractor may have for you. In addition, at the bottom of any screen that you're in eSRS, there are live links that will give you step-by-step instructions on the review. I also wanted to mention that we are going through a lot of subcontracting regulations changes, and we have several changes that relate to task orders and subcontracting plans as it relates to them. So when I get back to my office, if you would, I would like to just provide you with a lot of updates with that information that we can share with the audience in reference to that.
Very good, very good. Okay, so let's see. Can you repeat your email address?
Sure. Angela, Angela .Terry, TERRY @SBA.gov. Email is the best way to communicate with me, and you might even get a response at 11 o'clock at night because I'm always on my BlackBerry trying to make sure I don't miss answering someone's question.
Okay. So, is there, Angela, an eSRS POC list for each agency that's available?
Yes. So, as I was showing you in eSRS, can I?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Please
So,
try.
within eSRS, you have contractors and you have agency, and forgive me for not navigating this, so let me do that now. So this is the eSRS toolbar once you've logged in, and this is the government section. Any announcements that GSA, Integrated Acquisition Environment, or some government agency wants you to know will be in the announcement stage. Reports are reports that have been submitted. Individual will be that individual subcontract report. Summary will be both your individual summary report as well as your commercial. And then you have your year-end SEB reports. Then you have contractors. These are all of the contractors that are registered in eSRS and their contact information. And then you have agencies. So when we talk about contacting the agencies, you can look at it by searching from the organization. And if you look for the organization's name, you can go to the core data tab and you can search, you can search by organization. Once you search by organization, it then gives you a listing of all of the contacts within that organization.
Very helpful.
And it also tells you whatever role that they have in eSRS. You then can actually search by role. You can search for agency coordinators you want to look for, contracting officials, designated government users, POC, super users. You can look for that. If you know the person's name that you're looking for, all you have to do is go to keyword, enter any portion of that name and hit search, and it will provide you with that information.
Angela, I think that's very helpful. You mentioned earlier that when a contracting officer takes over a contract, as long as they're registered within that organization, they can see those contracts, but those reports, but knowing who to contact when there is a change or a transition, knowing where to go, that listing is very helpful.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So let's see what additional questions we have. All right. Let's see. Are simple small purchases, material and supply items considered subcontracting?
So the simple answer to that is anything that you don't provide for yourself that you have to procure outside is a subcontract.
Okay.
Simple.
All right.
You know, if you're a prime contractor and you have to go outside of your organization to procure an item to complete the work on this contract, it is considered a subcontract.
Okay, very good. In what type of contracts would the eSRS be used? Would this be used in R&D contracts?
Research and development.
Yes.
eSRS it's not specific to any type of contract.
That's right.
Other than if the government issues a contract that meets the threshold of 600, and that threshold will go up soon, of $650,000 for service and supplies, or $1.5 million for construction.
Yes.
It meets the threshold for a subcontracting plan requirement, and therefore you must have a subcontracting plan.
Very good. When a contractor submits an ISR in eSRS, we love the acronyms, the contracting specialist or contracting officer reviews and accepts or rejects the report. When a contractor submits a SSR in eSRS, who reviews and accept or reject the report? And this is a common question across the federal agency.
So definitely the commercial plan is the contracting officer. The individual is agency specific. So if your agency has elected that the contracting officer reviews the individual summary report, then it is the contracting officer. If your agency has deemed someone else, then it's someone else. But definitely the contracting officer is responsible for the commercial plan.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that we clarify. We're talking about, in the case of subcontract summary reports, there are two types, one for commercial plans, one for individual plans. And the one for the commercial plans, it is indeed the contracting officer's responsibility to approve or reject.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that clarifies things. As knowledgeable as I thought I was about subcontracting, I always thought that it was OSTBU's responsibility to either approve or reject the commercial subcontract summary. So you have provided great clarity, and I just want to say thank you for that. I hope for the rest of you that actually helps a lot as well. Okay, so I have seen ISRS reports in eSRS. Is it possible for a government agency to enter a subcontract plan or plan goals in eSRS.gov?
No. Unfortunately, at this point in time, subcontracting plans are not electronic. We are doing some revamping to eSRS, and that may be something that will happen in the future. But at this particular time, it is not. The plan does not go into eSRS.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of questions about copies of the presentation. And if you look to the right of the screen, you'll see wording that says training slides. You can click on that, and the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation is there. However, keep in mind that Angela gave a live presentation from eSRS. Now, the video, this webcast, will be made available on FAI.gov. So you'll actually be able to see the video as well as Angela's PowerPoint presentation on FAI.gov probably within the next couple of weeks. All right, so we've received a lot of questions, very popular. Let's see. And okay, we just answered that one. Here's another one. How does FAR 52.204-10 apply with contractors who have received an award over $25,000? Does this clause apply to small businesses who have subcontractors at a value over $25,000 and the contract is over $50,000 and the prime has subcontracted the work out to a contractor for $25,000? Just wondering how this clause applies to small business.
So first of all, everyone, 52204-10 is for FATA, Federal Accounting and Transparency Act. It has nothing to do with 52219-9 of the FAR, which is the Small Business Act.
Okay.
However, so I don't like answering questions that have nothing to do with my privy. However, I will tell you that if you need to have any questions answered on FAFATA, you can also go to the help desk, the www.fsd.gov, which FAFATA is also ran from GSA.
Okay.
And they will answer that question for you as well.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I actually was going to ask you about the sub award reporting, if that data was actually extracted from FAFATA. And so I guess I have to go to the Federal Service Desk, Angela, to get that clarification.
And, I do know that the data on FAFATA is on USA Spending. So
okay, very good, very good. All right, so Loretta gave you a shout out from Fiscal Service. Just want to let you know. Let's see. All right. Any new questions? Is a subcontracting plan required using FAR 13.5 Simplified Acquisitions Test Program? In the FAR, it states $650,000 for negotiated contracts, FAR Part 15.
So initially, I'm going to say yes. It is my understanding that any contract that meets the threshold of the $650,000 or $1.5 million is required to have a subcontracting plan. However, because I do not do work on 13.5 simplified acquisition, I will go back and ask the powers that be, which is Ken Dodds of our Small Business Regulation Policies department, to ensure that I am correct.
Okay.
But my here and now answer is any contract that meets the threshold is required to have a subcontracting plan unless it was issued to a small business.
Okay, very good. And so, Angela, once you get that response, if you'll provide it to us, HHS is in the process of gathering all of the Q&As from all of our training series, each of our training presentations, and we're going to include them on the HHS website. Those will not be on FAI.gov, at least not yet, but the webinar itself will be, as well as the training slides. So
Okay.
your responses we will definitely include
Okay.
with all of the questions that we have received today. We will
Okay.
definitely include
Okay.
them. So Angela, let me see if we have any additional questions. This is really great. There's a lot of interest. We knew that there would be. And it looks like from all over the country, you're getting a lot of questions with where there's a lot of interest.
Okay.
So if we have problems with the eSRS system, who can I contact to get it resolved?
Okay, so we'll contact the Federal Service Desk, which is that tab right there. It's www.fsd.gov. Again, fsd.gov is the Federal Service Desk that's managed by the Integrated Acquisition Environment, which is GSA, and they handle any technical issues that you will have with eSRS. If in fact your question is a subcontracting question, they cannot answer that. They don't do policy. You would need to contact SBA, and you can either contact your commercial marketing representative or again contact me directly.
Okay, very good. So one thing that I heard you share with us today is how important it is to communicate with our prime contractors throughout the year and not just wait until the end of the year.
Yes, most definitely. It is very important, especially for those commercial plan holders, because the ISRs, you're going to get them in 6 months interviews, so you're going to look at it and see what they're doing. You also know you have until the end of the contract period to kind of make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do and they're meeting their goals. Remember, the commercial plan is only for a fiscal year.
Okay.
And they only are going to report at the end of the fiscal year.
Yes.
So you want to kind of start some communications with them 3 months in every quarter, perhaps,
Yes.
to just make sure that they're on track of meeting their goals and they don't have any shortfalls that they are aware of. Because perhaps you can intervene. Perhaps they need to look for some contractors, and you can help them do some market research to get that. But if you wait until the end of the year, it's too late for that
Yes.
period.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you also talked a lot about the remarks section
Yes, most definitely.
of the report.
Yes, most definitely. Please keep in mind as I said earlier, back in the day we had a paper-based
Indeed.
process where papers got lost, contract
Yes.
files got lost, we closed down things, stayed on my desk, somebody else's desk.
That's right.
We now use the electronic system to document. I always tell my contractors in training that when they're documenting something to us, they use their remarks field, and I ask them to put a date prior to their comments, and I ask the government to do the same in the reject notice or the accept notice, so it will be in the body of that particular report
Yes.
indefinitely, so that if anyone else comes in, we change hands with the contract responsibility, that individual will have that data, so
Yeah.
they'll be aware of it.
Very helpful, very helpful. And something that I never thought about, and I want to thank you for this tidbit, and that is ask the contractor if
Yeah.
they need training,
Yeah.
if they need
Ask them.
assistance.
Yeah.
I don't think that we often think that, hey, our primes actually may have some questions and confusion. So I definitely think the more that we can open the dialogue around this, the more that not only at HHS but across the federal government, we can achieve our subcontracting goals. And
Most
the more
definitely.
we achieve our subcontracting goals, the more opportunities there are for small businesses.
That is
And
correct.
that is what we're all here to do.
That's
So
correct.
very good,
Yeah.
very good. So here's a question. Some contractors have an old company name on a new ISR, but the new company name is correct in SAM.gov. Interesting.
So, go. Okay.
And I'll finish and then I'll throw it at you.
Okay.
And the contract was novated to change the name of the company, and the new name is in the government agency system. How does the contractor get the new name on the new ISR? That's an interesting
Yeah, it
question.
is. So the system is built this way. Once a company has an novation agreement, the old
Yes.
company is no longer there. However, that old company did have a contract in eSRS. They did have reporting requirements within eSRS. So therefore, that report needs to stay there. They no longer report on that old contract. They now need to go into eSRS and report on the new contract.
I see. Okay, very interesting. Very
contract.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see if there are any It looks like we got a couple of more questions. More compliments, Angela. They're loving it. You're doing a fantastic job. So again, thank you. Let's see if there's anything else. If anyone has any additional questions, this is a great time. Angela is extremely busy, given that she's providing oversight across the entire federal government. So I'm feeling very fortunate to have you here. So it's a great opportunity to get your questions out. So while we're waiting for additional questions, I will just throw a couple others at you.
Okay.
Indirect dollars. You mentioned that, and I may have captured this incorrectly,
Okay.
so I'll ask you to clarify.
Okay.
So if the prime contractor reports that they have included indirect dollars, is it the contracting officer's responsibility when they are reviewing the subcontracting report, the eSRS report, that they are to deduct the amount of the indirect dollars from the amount of dollars that were reported as subcontracted, or did I get that incorrect?
So the contracting officer can never deduct anything.
Okay.
They can never do that because they don't know what portion of the dollars are indirect dollars.
Okay.
However, it's two different types of reports. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
If it's the ISR report, it is governed by the subcontracting plan. So if the subcontracting plan says indirect dollars is included,
Yes.
indirect dollars are included.
Okay.
If the subcontracting plan that says indirect dollars are not included and the contractor said indirect dollars were included, we reject the report and say, please remove your indirect dollars.
And that's why it's so important for the contracting officer to have a copy
Right.
of the subcontracting plan when they're conducting the
That is
review.
correct.
As you stated previously.
Right. So, but
Okay.
there's a catch-22 to that. When it comes to the summary report, the FAR does state that a prorated portion of the indirect cost should be included in the summary report.
Okay.
And we've had questions from contractors trying to figure out, how do I calculate that?
Yes.
And what we try to tell them is just prorated over the life of the contract.
Okay. So the contracting officer, however, does not have a role.
No.
Okay. Very good.
Their only role is to verify on that ISR
Yes.
that indirect cost is either supposed to be on there or not
Okay.
supposed
And
to be
according
on
to
there.
the subcontracting plan.
Yes.
Very good. All right. So here's a question. How responsive are government agencies in compliance with subcontracting reports? In other words, are they just checking the box? If they are just checking the box, does SBA have a way of monitoring the reality of the subcontracting plan?
Okay. Well, I would hope that every government agency is serious about our regulations and requirements. It is very, I mean, this administration has made it very clear how they support small business. And the subcontracting program is how we ensure small businesses receive government dollars. So I would like to think that every agency is serious about that. However, SBA definitely monitors, and I would be that monitoring individual in which I do sporadically look at reports. And I look at reports to see whether or not someone is meeting their goals, on target to meet their goals. I look at the commercial plan report to make sure that the dollar figures are somewhat accurate, especially the percents attributable. If they're giving you 99%, that, you know, I know that there's some issues there. So SBA definitely does some monitoring. However, we hold it up to the agencies because it will be the agencies that will be held accountable through Congress and the president when it comes to their small business dollars.
Absolutely. And I can tell you at HHS that subcontracting is a very important priority.
Right.
And that is one of the reasons that we're having this training, because the way that the regulations are written, and I recognize that you don't write the regulations, but the way that they're written, they can be confusing.
Yes.
And so there are many contracting officers who's really have an intention to do the right thing, but the information is somewhat confusing. So having you here to clarify, it goes a long way, Angela. And I just want to say again, I know, you know, I know that I've been complimenting you throughout, but I really, if you could just hear the questions that in the small business office that we receive from contracting, you would understand really how valuable this training is. And in fact, you got a compliment from GSA. They say good job from GSA here in DC.
Thank you.
So, all right, so here's a question. Are small businesses exempt from being required to submit subcontracting plan regardless of the dollar value of the contract. For example, a $3 million contract for a small business.
Yes. Yes, they are.
They are.
They are.
But I do want to address the 52.219-8, which is the inclusion or small business participation.
And limitations of subcontracting as well.
Yeah,
that is
definitely,
correct. That they must do at least 51% of the subcontracting on awards that they are provided.
Definitely.
Right. And I'm sorry. And guys, believe it or not, small businesses police other small businesses.
Yes, they
So
do.
if they find out that some small business got awarded a contract and gave that contract to a large business, they're going to bring it to someone's attention. And when they bring that kind of information to your attention, just as bait and switch, when a large business say, "Hey, I'm going to give you a contract," and they don't get the contract, those are things that you need to bring to our attention and definitely to the head of your contracting attention, because we do have rules and regulations that stop those types of actions.
Well, you know what I think is going to be very helpful for federal agencies is the like kind credit that a small business that, for example, is a hub zone that subcontracts to a hub zone, that the federal agency can get credit
for it.
Exactly at that subcontract level and the prime level for that hub zone. So that it not only encourages small businesses to use other small businesses that are like kind, but it also gives the agencies credit. So it's really a win-win for everyone. So I think that's great. And I know that was your idea. I know that was your idea as to why they put that in there. So very good. So here's the question. Will there be any time in the future that the current subcontracting plan, copy of it scanned, for example, could be uploaded to eSRS? This would help a contracting officer ensure accurate reporting to the contractor.
So we have the integrated acquisition environment has a change control board, and every agency has someone who sits on that board. I would recommend you finding who is the person that sits on the CCB for your agency. What they do is they represent your agency, whatever system that is ran by IAE. If you require some type of enhancement to that system to make your job easier, it's their job to put a change request into the system.
Okay.
The more change requests we have for a certain feature definitely increases the ability for us to do it.
Indeed.
We do know that that subcontracting plan would be a major thing if we could get it electronic, so you don't have to go look for it when it comes time for you to review that report.
Exactly.
I can't say for certain whether or not that is something that we have agreed on it right now, because I haven't looked in JIRA, but I can tell you if you can communicate with your integrated acquisition environment CCB rep, they will definitely be able to tell you. If it's not, they can put a request in for you.
Okay, thank you. So a couple more questions before we let you out of here.
Okay.
There's one: is a subcontracting plan required to be submitted from Ability One?
Yes. And that is one that has been at the forefront. Believe it or not, Ability One is willing to do that. My first encounter with that was with GSA. GSA wanted to understand whether or not Ability One was supposed to be doing a subcontracting plan, and they are, and they're not exempt from that. And believe it or not, if you talk to Ability One, they will have no problems with doing a subcontracting plan as well.
Okay, very good. So another question: when awarding BPAs or IDIQs, when do we submit the eSRS?
eSRS reports are, I don't really understand that question, so let me say this. Whenever you award a contract, you enter that contract in FPDS&G. If a subcontracting plan was required, you definitely click subcontracting plan is required. Whenever you issue any task order or whoever was awarded that particular IDIQ, BPA, or whatever, they are supposed to report when reports are due, and they report on the base contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what authority does SBA have to assist a small business when a prime closes the business without paying them for work performed?
Oh wow, that's horrible.
It is
Definitely, you need to contact SBA. You can either contact government contracting and business development if you don't know anyone within government contracting and business development.
The PCR.
Contact me. You contact the PCR, contact the CMR, but you definitely need to let somebody in SBA know, and we will reach out and assist a small business any way because that's definitely a violation of the regulations itself.
Exactly. And if you don't
As
know,
well as the Prompt Payment Act.
Exactly. And if you don't know whom at SBA to reach out to, please reach out to your small business office, and we can assist you with finding someone at SBA.
And in fact, that should be the first person they reach out to.
Absolutely. Okay, so Angela, we have gone over. This is great, and I'm not complaining at all. This it's very important to all of us that the individuals, our contracting officers are our primary stakeholders, and we work in tandem with them to provide maximum opportunities for small businesses. So having you here has been a delight. There have been a lot of questions regarding your CLPs, your continuing learning points, and their answer is absolutely yes. What we do at HHS is we ask individuals to pre-register in FATAS. We're working very closely with them to ensure that your records are updated with the CLPs. 1.5 CLPs for this session are updated to your profile. If you did not pre-register, it's okay, because you did register for the webinar on the webcast site. We will then get that information from our webcast contractor, and we will ensure that FAI also receives that information. If you are participating on this training as a group, then what you can do is contact your agency career manager, and just have that individual provide us at sbmail@hhs.gov with a listing of those individuals, and we will ensure that everyone receives proper credit. So, Angela, I'm going to conclude the webcast hesitantly because it's been so wonderful. We've had a significant interest, and like I said, that providing the clarity on our role as the acquisition personnel and approving, rejecting, taking the status or making a decision on those subcontracting reports is really critical, and it's going to go a long way. I thank you. You are welcome anytime. If you have new information that you want to share, you are always welcomed at HHS. Everyone, I just wanted to thank you again for participating, and we will send an announcement out shortly for our next webcast. We just want to thank everybody again for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.